It seems to me there's a reason that they were blocked. Again, that's really troubling.
And on the flip side, you look at those who are allowed in, Brian Stelter, namely Breitbart, and the conservative paper, The Washington Times. There's a theme.
Yeah, that's the essential point, I think. We've seen this administration stacking the deck with friendlier news outlets. And when I say friendlier, what I mean are news outlets that have a point of view. In some cases are openly rooting for the president. We don't see CNN or the New York Times rooting for any president, whether a Democrat or Republican. But the Breitbarts of the world, they do root for candidates and root for presidents. There's not anything necessarily wrong with that. It's a point of view form of journalism. But what we've seen is this administration taking a lot of questions from conservative outlets, from friendlier outlets, and that's a way of stacking the deck in order to have more favorable coverage. I wanted to mention one of the outlets that was invited into this briefing to give our viewers some perspective. CNN right now has about 1 million people watching, sometimes more, sometimes less. OANN, One America News, one of the channels brought into this briefing, is so small it doesn't have Nielsen ratings. And yet the White House is giving it a lot of access because it views it as a friendlier outlet. So that's an example of a sort of imbalance. When you talk about the New York Times and the CNNs of the world, you might think they're biased, you might think they're not fair, but they're among the biggest news outlets in the country. And that's why all administrations, whether Clinton, Bush, Obama, would allow that kind of access to the big news outlets that cover every White House. That's why we didn't see President Bush take this kind of action, or before him, President H.W. Bush or President Reagan. They recognized the importance of reaching big news outlets and speaking with those journalists that speak on behalf of the public. So that's the challenge here. We're seeing a norm, not among Democrats or Republicans. This is bipartisan in the past, fair treatment of a variety of news organizations. And President Trump is challenging that by blocking these news outlets today.
You know, to